Hello everyone, my name is VoidDoctor and welcome back to another episode on the InfinityCraft server. And today we begin today's episode in front of the castle project that I have been making a lot of off-camera progress on. I've basically finished the entire, exterior structure of the castle. Don't worry, this is just a creeper explosion. But I've basically finished the entire exterior structure of the castle, aside from the little residential wing over here. This still isn't done, the tower is not done, and neither is this little stretch of wall right here. So that is still something that we're going to have to work on, and I will probably just work on that off camera, considering that it's not a huge task. And I'm really excited about this whole castle project. The roofs of these towers they just feel very impressive. Like specifically the more pointy sort of spike. I always forget this word. The spire roofs definitely coming together quite nicely, feeling quite uniform. These two, the two dark oak and deep slate ones, and then this building over here, which I think is probably going to be the library. This building here, this spire roof, is definitely quite neat as well, considering that it's a much larger tower, so it means that the spire roof can actually be a lot taller, which means it's quite a bit more impressive than either of the other spire roofs, even though it's not as sharp at the top. It doesn't have the iron bars in the wall and stuff. And I also think the color palette for this build is nice because it's a bit more refreshing. The rest of the place is pretty much just the same color palette, but this one, it's a bit more refreshing. You got different color palette, and I think I might reuse this or reuse some of these colors in the residential tower, even if it doesn't have the same style of roof. I think I'm going to use this roof because it can have large windows, and I definitely think this tower is tall enough to get some very nice views of the town. And this one is will be slightly obstructed by the residential tower, so the residential tower will probably fill the space, and will create a sort of blind spot for that window. But if we have a window that's facing the town in the residential tower, then we still get some very nice views. But that's pretty much just all the off-camera progress that I've been making, and I'm really still happy with how the Great Hall door is looking, or the big Great Hall arch. I just made it slightly larger, and also when making it larger, I guess I forgot to put the stairs back in, so that's a little bit embarrassing. But the first thing, and I've also made the Great Hall taller and deeper too, and that's to just sort of accommodate the second floor. And speaking of the second floor, my sort of plan for the Great Hall is to have the main floor, this sort of first floor, be the like a dining hall, and then have the second floor be a sort of living quarters for the leader of the castle, whoever owns this castle, whether it's like a lord or a baron or something. Have them live on the second floor of the Great Hall because it's it's got a lot of space, so them and whoever, like their family and people, can live up on the second floor and sort of live in more comfort than anyone who even lives in the residential wing. And then all of the soldiers will be living in the barracks, and all of whoever works around the castle. So all like the maybe just the people people who aren't the army and aren't any royalty or wealth or nobility would probably live somewhere underground. And I realized I'm just out of food, so that's not good. But the first thing that I'd like to do before we get started with the rest of this episode is actually to put a roof on the Great Hall. It's going to be pretty similar to these roofs on these buildings, sort of well, I'll try and get a good view of these so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Sort of like this roof here, where it's got these two little parts so it's got these two sort of just triangles, and then the logs are inset by one block, and then they have these little bands going over them. I don't know if I'm going to do that with these. With the Great Hall, I might, but I might not, to keep it looking a bit more clean because it's such a large roof. And then the Great Hall will also have walls of some sort going up like this to sort of make it because it's such a large space, we want it to feel a bit more detailed. And so that's a way to do it. And then also at the top, of course, we'll have another wall. Definitely not going to have the iron bars, though, because those are too much texture and also make it look way too spiky. So I think I'm going to go farm some dark oak wood really quick because I've somehow managed to use all of it in this build. So that just goes to show how much wood is in these roofs. Like, just those roofs alone, and also some of the staircases and things have used some dark oak logs. But that just goes to show how much of everything has gone into this build so far. So yeah, I gotta go farm some dark oak wood, and then we'll get constructing the roof of the Great Hall. Oh, look who's back to see how the castle building's coming along. I know you're trying to kill me, but it's just not gonna work. It's just not gonna work, man. Yeah, so I thought there might have been some dark oak logs in one of those chests out there. Nope. I honestly only have 26 dark oak logs to my name. I can now hear skeletons patrolling the castle walls and in some of the towers. This is actually kind of funny. It's kind of entertaining just hearing them wandering around. All right, so I think it's about time we get working on the Great Hall, and I'm still not ridiculously happy with how this door has turned out. I don't know. I might make the arch slightly wider and make it slightly taller by sort of just shaving off these little bits of the wall right here and sort of making it so that the arch could sort of extend this way as well, and that might make it look a bit better because it'll have a much larger sort of width as well. And yeah, I think I probably will do that, so let's see how that looks. Yeah, I actually feel like having the walls come out like this actually feels a bit better, sort of, you know, the curve sort of flattens out right here. I feel like it feels a bit more impressive, and this arch looks a lot better when the curves a bit, you know, when they don't pop out as much. Alright, so I'm actually really happy with how this door has turned out now, and the Great Hall, it still has one block of space, so if we wanted to go, for example, again, underground, maybe here, and have maybe the kitchen down underground, and then they bring up the food from there, that would probably still work, since now we're underground, so it'd still work. That's all I'm trying to say. And this door definitely looks a lot better. I'm not sure if I want to keep the stone bricks there. They kind of look like metal or something, but it definitely feels a lot stronger and a lot more impressive now, so if you know, they could swing them wide open if there was like a big feast and all the town was coming to enjoy food in the Great Hall, then they could definitely swing the doors wide open and let everyone in. So the next thing, of course, we need to work on, that I've been massively procrastinating on, is putting a roof on the Great Hall, because I don't exactly know how the roof is going to turn out, and I want it to look very good, and if it doesn't look good, then I'm going to be sad, because I'll have to tear it down and redesign it. So, let's get working on the roof. Again, I'm still procrastinating. Yeah, so right now this is looking pretty darn terrible. Sort of the general shape of this is just looking very boxy, but I think as soon as we put, you know, maybe a large window or something in there, it'll start to look a lot better and a lot, you know, less just clean straight lines, which is not something I'm going for in this castle. Clean straight lines, they're cool in modern builds, but definitely not in a medieval castle. Alright, so I'm actually fairly happy with how this is coming along, but I think we can maybe set this out by a block or something, maybe make it sort of stick out of the wall in a way. I don't know how we're going to do that, but I kind of want to do that because it will look very sort of neat. And I just think this roof is too cool to pass up the opportunity to use it here. Like it looks sort of like a big sort of Nordic hall from the inside. So that's definitely this is definitely a roof design that I want to use. Also, this place is becoming a mob farm very, very quickly, so we're going to need to light that up as soon as we're done building the roof, but gotta finish the roof first. Alright, so I've just sort of reverted to the other design, and it's sort of growing on me, because there's a lot of things we could use, there's a lot of things we could do to fill this space. It doesn't have to be a window. We could have, you know, maybe a big banner sort of draping down in front of there to sort of act as a very large flag. We could do a lot of things with this. Of course, we could just put a window, like we could have like a banner, we could do a bunch of stuff there. So it doesn't have to be a giant forehead for the space. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be an empty forehead. It's going to look like a forehead kind of, but we can sort of mask that by putting like a window or something over, or, you know, by putting a window or something there. But this isn't actually the focus of today's episode. This is just sort of to finish up the exterior of the Great Hall. My focus for today's episode is actually going to be sort of working on an interior for the castle, and the buildings that I'd like to put interiors in are going to be the library here. That's really what I want this building to do. The barracks I've actually already interiored, so we're not going to do that. But the library, I want this to sort of, I want this to be the kitchen. And I kind of want to work on this too. I want this maybe to be like a large room for maybe cartography or something, considering that it's so high up. It would be great for cartography, you know, which is the craft of map making. And so, yeah, that'd be pretty cool if we could have this be like a big area where, you know, whoever's the cartographer around here could, you know, look out around, you know, look out at the lands, definitely with a higher render distance than 16. and sort of, sketch out what he sees, sort of map the area, because he's got such a good view. You got, giant windows on either side. No windows here, but still very good view of both the south and north sides of the castle. So I think that's probably what this room's going to be. And then the other room down here can be, or no, this room can be the kitchen over here. Not the kitchen for the Great Hall. I think the Great Hall kitchen will be underground where we have more space, but this could sort of be like the kitchen maybe for the barracks, and then the maybe, actually, now that I think about it, this could be like an eating room, like in, somewhere where the soldiers could eat. Maybe just take out this pillar, and this could be sort of a very small room where all the soldiers could eat. Because I'm not planning on, I'm not thinking that there will be a ton of soldiers stationed at this castle, because it's again times of peace. And again, I don't think that there needs to be a lot of soldiers stationed here, so maybe we only need to have space for a few soldiers. Yeah, but the first room I'd like to work on is definitely this little kitchen in here. As I already mentioned, I have a little vat where they could be, brewing something. I don't know. If we're going for kid-friendly, then they could be brewing seltzer. If we're not, it's probably beer. Let's be honest. You gotta keep the people happy somehow, so it's probably beer or some other alcohol. But, yeah, so this is definitely the first building that I'd like to work on. Probably going to be a fairly small kitchen, considering that, again, I'm only planning on having however many beds are in there, which is exactly 9. So, okay, maybe we'll have more. Maybe you can use your imagination and there's a bit more than 9 soldiers stationed here. But you get that point. There's not a lot of soldiers stationed here, probably like 20 or 30. And then the rest, the rest would probably be stationed at, the barracks in town. So there's not a ton of soldiers stationed here, so they don't have to feed a ton of people, but there's enough soldiers here to sort of, act as defense in case there's a riot or something. People who aren't very happy with the leadership that this castle's offering, they can, they can put down any rebellions or riots. And yeah, so that's also why a lot of the windows in the castle are in the towers and not in a lot of the buildings. Because again, if there's a lot of, if there's an important individual, even maybe the leader of the castle, and therefore the town is in one of these rooms, you wouldn't want him to be able to get hit by like a rock, and you wouldn't want him to get put in danger by having windows there. So it's just a safety measure to have all the windows in the towers, just in case there is some sort of rebellion. But hopefully the soldiers could put down any rebellion before it started. I think the thing we'll have to work on next episode is definitely putting some paths and things around here, and also putting some grass in here, because right now the ground is so textureless. It feels like it's just astroturf. It's kind of a blessing that the elytra don't fully break, because they've now broken so many times, or they've now tattered so many times on me, because I haven't rolled Unbreaking in an enchanting table, and we still don't have an Unbreaking villager. So it's like I have no source of Unbreaking right now. But yeah, I'm actually really happy with how this has turned out. Maybe we can, put some sort of like, what would make it look like this is full of water, because right now it just looks like a big stone pot. But what could make it look like it's full of water? Or just kind of imply that there's something in there. Let me think for a sec. Unfortunately, I don't have mossy stone bricks, which would have fit in much better, but maybe mossy cobblestone, because I don't know. I think moss could sort of imply that there's, you're working in like a wet environment, which is probably what the brewery is. Maybe, liquids being spilled or something around there. So the moss could sort of imply that there's, that there's been slight spill or something. Yeah, it's just not really doing it for me. It sort of just looks like it just looks very out of place. So I think we're just gonna keep the stone bricks there, and it still looks cool. It still looks cool. Maybe we could even waterlog these slabs later if we wanted to sort of continue these bubbles upwards. Except I don't know if they actually continue into waterlogged blocks. But definitely when you look inside, you're like, okay, yeah, that's like a sort of bubbling vat of it's a liquid of your choice. It's a mystery liquid. We don't know what it is, because we're gonna imply that it implies that it's beer, but we don't exactly know what it is. Could be seltzer in the medieval times. We don't exactly know. But in all honesty, I can't talk today. But in all honesty, we're just kind of being accurate here. Like beer was beer was drinking back then, so it is quite accurate to have beer being brewed. So if this is meant to be a sort of accurate castle, okay, this isn't very historically accurate, but beer was a very beer was brewed back then, very, 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 very much. Okay, but the next building I'd like to work on is definitely the library. It's a very neat looking building because it's got like a two-tone design. As you can see, a lot of these towers are sort of just all stone. So having the library featuring two different colors, two different wall colors specifically, it sort of transitions straight from stone to wool, looks pretty cool. I think this transition's a bit harsh, but that's kind of what these logs do. They sort of give something for your eyes to look at that kind of distracts you from the kind of very harsh transition. So I think we're gonna work on that next, and it's a pretty again, I have a pretty cool idea for this, and I still haven't repaired my elytra yet. I just need to do some villager trading very quickly, but I have a pretty neat idea. And now all I need to do is buy bookshelves from villagers, because I don't have enough books. I don't have enough leather to craft enough bookshelves for all the bookshelves that I want to put in here. So I kind of just think I'm gonna buy some bookshelves from Librarian. So let's go do that right now. Well, the first order of business is to figure out where I want to put the door, because I've been really liking having doors in sort of odd places, like here, instead of having the door be like maybe here, which would be very inconvenient. I'm having like a double door sort of thing, but it's at an angle, so it looks pretty cool here. I'm wondering if I could do that over here. It would look a little bit forced putting it here, but I think it would still look kind of cool, and it would look a little bit less bland than just having it here. So maybe we could try. I don't actually have any doors on me. Let me go craft some of those. I've also figured out sort of where I want to put doors, because in some of the towers it doesn't make sense to have doors, like in the the actual battle towers where most of the battle will be happening. It doesn't make sense to have doors like here, because soldiers, if there's like an invasion or something, they're gonna need to be able to get into this tower quickly. So it wouldn't make sense to have a door. But in something like here, where it's like a very it's not a battle tower, it's not like a defense tower. It makes more sense to have a door, because it also kind of keeps it sealed, protects all the books from the weather. Yeah, I'm just not really feeling it there. I think this is gonna look better. Just putting the door in the middle, probably. Let's see what it looks like. Maybe setting it in. That looks cool, actually. I like that, because it's still sort of I don't know. It's sort of it's almost like suspense, like if there's like a bit of a door gap here, like a doorway, it sort of provides suspense, whereas if the door is sort of here, it's sort of just there, but here it's sort of more prominent, I guess. And I do have 52 bookshelves. This is a combination of bookshelves that I purchased from villagers, and I just spent a lot, and I mean a lot of leather and paper on crafting up some bookshelves. So definitely have a lot of those. Probably actually not going to be enough, though, unfortunately. Just kind of how it works sometimes. But I think what we're gonna have to do now is just start laying out some bookshelves, and I want to do this again in a very sort of whimsical way. So sort of like this, sort of having them sort of trailing up the walls like that, just having them sort of. There's probably not like this, probably not so kind of carelessly, because I only have a few bookshelves. I only have 52, and I'm down to 34. So maybe something like this, a bit more minimalistic, like that. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And we'll just sort of continue up until we run out of bookshelves. And of course, if I run out of bookshelves, I can just get more later and finish this up. But I think for now, we're just going to interior this until I pretty much run out of bookshelves. And it's not just going to be bookshelves, obviously. I want to have maybe like floating candles or something like that. I need to put a floor in here as well. But yeah, I feel like having a bunch of, like, a big variety of different rooms in the castle just means that it's got so many more places to sort of explore, like it's got, like, it feels like you could sort of get lost in it, and I'm just gonna put these around. Probably not gonna have enough candles, because I only have a few, and a lot of those are used in the kitchen. But okay, that's way too low. I think it was actually at the same Y level as the other one, so gotta put it up higher. And yeah, so I'm just gonna kind of have just maybe, yeah, just exactly 3 floating candles, sort of just adding a bit of atmosphere and definitely adding a bit of mystery to the place as well. Yeah, I'm really happy with how this turned out. It looks like in some very tall, maybe like hotel lobbies, there's like maybe a big chandelier up at the top and kind of draws your eyes upwards, and maybe it's like a big spiral staircase or something. I feel like if we get a lot of bookshelves going in here, maybe even some like some like actual trapdoors and things underneath them, these candles all sort of act as the chandelier that draws your eyes upwards, and then the bookshelves will sort of act as like the spiral staircase that sort of makes it look a bit more mesmerizing. You know, if there's sort of bookshelves kind of encompassing your entire vision upwards towards the top of the tower, it'll look extremely sort of, it'll make it look taller than it really is, because this tower isn't actually very tall. It's a fairly short building, but I feel like if you look straight up and there's a lot of things sort of encompassing your vision, it looks a lot taller than it really is. And I don't think I'm actually going to open this tower up to the walls. I think I'm going to have it closed off from the walls, because it's not like a defense tower. Originally I thought it was going to be a defense tower, but now that I think about it, I think I'm just going to keep it sort of closed off from the walls, and it's just going to sort of be it's going to sort of stay as the library and not going to have any sort of soldiers sort of walking through it. And I just realized I left the scaffolding for the roof out there, which is just granite. Alright, so I actually crafted more candles and more bookshelves, and now this place is really feeling quite mysterious and mixed and mystical. But I think maybe in the future we could add something here that like retracts this bookshelf and like maybe, you know, leads to like an underground passage down there. But unfortunately I just don't have enough materials. I just don't figure out where I'm going to put the I don't know where I'm going to put the redstone. I just don't have the capacity to do that right now, but I have figured out a pretty sneaky trick. If you want to just show the top or bottom texture of a bookshelf, but you don't need to show the full texture, you can just put an oak plank there. Like here, I kind of ran out of bookshelf, so I just put an oak plank there, and it's pretty much the same texture. And there's also a cool trick that I learned online where you can, if you want to show like an empty bookshelf, you can do a loom. So maybe in the future I can do that and maybe show that some of the books, are being used right now. And I think at the top I want to put sort of the bedroom of the librarian who lives here. You know, like you could also think of them as like the library curator, but they're pretty much just the librarian. So I think I'm going to put the shelf of them sort of up at the top. Not the shelf, the bedroom. My mind's not on bookshelves right now. Anyway, yeah, so I'm going to put the bedroom of them up there, like their living quarters, sort of having them be like the librarian. Yeah, the librarian. And this room feels so much taller than it really is. Like I've already said this, but when you're inside, because it's everything's sort of vertical, like there's not a ton of horizontal lines, especially the candles. They sort of add to the the verticality of the room. It definitely feels a lot taller than it truly is. Like from the outside, it's not a giant room, but on the inside, it's kind of enormous. So that's a pretty cool effect that I was able to achieve just by kind of spreading things out vertically, but not out horizontally. So yeah, that's a cool trick if you want to make a interior feel extremely tall. However, I think once we put the bedroom in there, it'll feel a lot. It will unfortunately start feeling a lot less tall, because also that pointed roof I think is also adding to the sort of height of this place, because it sort of all comes to one point at the top, and I think that might not be able to achieve that once the floor of the bedroom is there. So we'll see how it goes though. Alright, so I've gotten the second floor all built up, the floor of the librarian's bedroom, and of course with the rafters in there. They're very simple rafters, not anything complicated, or not even really rafters even. They're just kind of strip logs that are sitting there sort of looking like rafters. Or maybe they're just supporting beams, I don't know. And now I think I'm going to need to figure out a way to sort of get up to the second floor. And I kind of want to do a spiral staircase, but the candles are going to sort of interfere. So I think I'm going to have it sort of wind around the room sort of in random ways, sort of hopping out of nooks and crannies and things. This should be pretty cool. Alright, so this is probably better than any sort of conventional spiral staircase, because it's so wacky. You have to sort of, it's parkour, but it's like the easiest parkour ever, but it's just, when you look up, it's so wacky looking now. Like it's sort of just obstructs your vision of everything. It's just very wacky, which is what I'm going for in here. Like nothing, it's not very organized, nothing sort of, you got no sort of organization. And now I think the last thing I'm gonna do is just throw down the bed and a nightstand and things like that up here. Maybe a chest of drawers and things, that kind of stuff. Just somewhere where the librarian can sort of, stay. That's not part of the library, because I don't think, even though they're obviously a sort of academic type, I don't think they'd want to spend all their time in the library. I think they'd probably just want some time to sort of, just sit down, relax, and probably be somewhere in more private space. And I think I'm also going to add a window to the library tower, just something pretty, just like a little, like a bay window or something, sort of, not a bay window, but like, something sort of sticking out of the side of the library, or something sticking out of the side of the tower, maybe here. Yeah, I think maybe I'll stick a window here, sort of sticking out of the side of the tower, So, this is completely unrelated to the construction of the castle library, but I forgot that swamps have, vines in them. So there's a swamp just over that hill. Like you can, if I just fly this way for a sec, you can see the swamp. It's extremely close. So yeah, I guess I'm gonna go harvest some vines and make a few mossy stone bricks. I don't exactly think we're gonna use them a ton, but I think in some situations they're a pretty cool idea to put in the castle. Alright folks, so I actually think this is pretty much the bedroom of the librarian complete. It's a fairly simple structure. In fact, we could probably do a different carpet color, considering that that's also the color of the walls, so it looks a little bit strange having the carpet be the same color as the walls, so that looks a little bit better. And yeah, it's a fairly simple structure, nothing too special up here, but just some bookshelves, a bed, a nightstand, some carpets, and of course a torch. Probably put that a little bit higher up. There we go. And I like doing these torch designs because torches themselves don't look very medieval, or they don't look super. They just don't look very atmospheric. But when you put this little, holder on them, they actually look pretty cool. Look like they're kind of braced, and it sort of feels very similar to the bottom floor. It's a little bit less sort of mystical, but that's why it's sort of divided, is because it sort of keeps this place feeling all mystical and magical. And I also added a window here, and it's pretty neat. I like how it looks. It's kind of sort of pops out of the wall a bit, sort of adds a bit of texture to this side of the castle, which, at least from the ground, doesn't look very detailed. Okay, it's quite a bit of stuff happening down there, but still, it adds a bit more texture to the wall and the tower, which is kind of missing. And that's actually a thing that I'd like to do for a lot of the towers, or at least a lot of like the residential, or the towers that aren't, again, like defensible towers. So this tower and this tower are definitely meant to, be defensive towers, but things like the residential tower, this one, that one, those are probably not meant to be so defensive, so those could probably be used more for, those could probably have, like, nicer windows and things in them. But specifically this one, probably you wouldn't want to, because this one is so close to the hillside, so somebody could go up here and, like, break the window and stuff. So probably want to have it more on, like, the residential tower and, again, the library tower, because the library, it's not a very high-value target, to be honest. I mean, there's not much, like, for anyone who's either invading the castle or just mad, like rioting, there's not much value in attacking the library. There's, I mean, books are cool, like, books are awesome, but I don't think they'd be of much value to an invading army. Although books were pretty rare for this time, so maybe they would be. Alright, here we are, folks. So the library room is feeling quite sort of eclectic and atmospheric, and it's also feeling quite, mysterious and magical, because there's literal floating bookshelves and candles. But I guess the bookshelves make sense, but the candles, because it's Minecraft, but I guess if it was in real life, it would make a lot less sense. But still, it definitely feels quite magical. And then when we come upstairs, the librarian's bedroom, it's a fairly simple bedroom, fairly minimalistic, but I'd assume the librarian would be spending most of their time down on the bottom floor. And I think I'm going to have a few more things on the bottom floor eventually, maybe some ladders and things, sort of like, just, for getting up to the higher levels of books. But upstairs, just a simple sort of bed setup, and then some bookshelves and some more floating candles. This one I forgot to light, but that's beside the point. And this spiral staircase is also fantastic. I think it's just so funny. Like I think the way it sort of just kind of winds everywhere is kind of funny. And then over here, little window, fairly simple, but definitely adds quite a bit of texture to the inside and actually the outside as well. Definitely makes the wall feel a bit more dynamic with that little like outcropping, the little wood outcropping there. So I'm fairly happy with how that interior turned out as well. So we've completed 2 interiors so far, the kitchen and the library, both of them feeling quite nice. And specifically the library, I think, is probably going to be a room where I'm spending quite a lot of time just for like inspiration, kind of just wandering around in there because it's pretty cool. I like it. And maybe I'll throw in some enchanting tables in there as well, alongside the ladders later. But of course, the last interior that I'd like to do this episode is the cartographer. That word just left my mind for a sec there. But the cartographer, because again, because this tower is so tall and has such a nice view, I think this would be a really good tower for like a cartographer to live, because you know they'd have such a good view, you know, for like making maps and stuff. So I think I'm gonna it's gonna be a fairly simple interior, but I think I'm also going to grab the maps of the base that I have stored in my little farmhouse. I'm gonna grab them and put them in this tower, since this is like the perfect spot for them. Alright, so these are 2 maps. This one is from about 2 weeks ago, or maybe a week and a half ago, and it's of the base. You can see that the castle is not there, so it's from before we started the castle project. It's actually from a few days before we started the castle project. And this one is current, it's still being updated, and I'm going to lock it in February, you know, early February, since this one was made in early January. So this is early January, and this is early February, and then we're over here, we're going to have early March and early April, and probably going to have, actually no, probably March, April, May, June, July, you know, and then it'll go up to August, and then we'll have to find a different spot. And I think I'm going to grab a sign and label these. So this is also going to be a very functional room, so that's also pretty cool. Alright, so we got the signs here. I just dyed them white so they stood out a bit more. But now I think what I'm going to do is go get an empty map and map out somewhere like maybe a mountain biome or something, sort of like representing the new 1.18 terrain, as if the cartographer, because the way I think about it is that the new terrain is almost like a new place, that it's like the it's at least in a 1.17 world, the new terrain's kind of like, oh, we discover new you know, a new type of biome. Like it's like the explorers have discovered a new place, so the cartographer is like mapping out the new 1.18 terrain, but for them it's just like newly explored terrain. So I think I'm gonna just grab some iron and some redstone and craft up an empty map, and we'll get on with mapping. I think there's some 1.18 mountains right by spawn, so we can go over there, create a map of like a cool spot over there, and then bring it back here and put it on like a, you know, a desk or something, make it look like the cartographer is sort of finishing up the map, sort of labeling it, that kind of stuff. This also gives me a pretty neat excuse to go back to those 1.18 mountains, because they are really beautiful. I want to do something with 1.18 mountains, but I've been so heavily focused on just working on the base, you know, just specifically building up the castle. This is something that I've been planning on doing for a while, that I've kind of wanted to get it done before we begin working on anything related to 1.18, considering that that's going to be a much more, that's going to involve leaving the base, that kind of stuff. So I want to finish up the main base project, or like get it to a place where I'm happy with it before we begin working on any sort of 1.18 related stuff, because it's just kind of a lot of work trying to get a whole, you know, 1.18 builds, you know, set up, trying to find a cool place for it. So I definitely want to get the base, you know, kind of to a place where I'm happy with it before we begin working on any sort of 1.18 stuff. All I'm looking for right now is a nice windswept hill, like a kind of a large windswept hill that, like, you know, probably here actually. Is this windswept hills? Yeah, this is a nice spot, these little, you know, snowy areas. So let's make a map here and see how it looks. Okay, yes, this is exactly what I was looking for. Somewhere that wasn't near the base, because that would just kind of be redundant, and it would be called out by the Department of Redundancy Department. Alright, so I got a map just back there, and yeah, I just wanted to come out here because it made sense. Like, maybe the cartographer would want to be sort of exploring the new terrain, and it's also not redundant, because I feel like if we created a map of of the base, even though we already have the maps of the base in there, it would just kind of be redundant, you know? It would be a little bit redundant. I probably should have said it would have been a little bit redundant, a little bit. All right, so I'm actually really happy with how this chair turned out. It's a little bit funky looking because the trapdoors have holes in them, but I think any other color of trapdoor would just look strange there. But I honestly think these views are really breathtaking. Like, maybe we should flip them out. No, no, that does not look right. But yeah, I just think these views are breathtaking, and yeah, it just gives you a really nice view of the town. And this room also was really suited to hold the maps. Like it just feels right to have the maps in here because it's a cartography room. So it's the quarters of a cartographer. I don't think this is actually be the cartographer's quarters. I think this would be more like their place of work. But I don't think this would be their quarters. I think they'd probably live in a separate building, maybe even the residential tower. But I think they'd probably not live here, but they definitely work here. Do their craft here, their profession. And yeah, I just think this is kind of a very breathtaking view. And it's also a very nice place to store the maps. And I also just think adding interiors to these buildings is a really good idea because it's sort of, especially the ones where you can sort of see inside. This one you can kind of see inside, especially if you have an Elytra, you can really see inside. But like even just a traveler can sort of see like the lantern in there and be like, oh, there's an interior in there. I kind of want to go check that out. I was talking about players generally because of course like travelers would go here anyway because it's kind of be like an important stop, but like players like Fake Blossom or whoever who's wandering through here could be like, oh, I want to go check this out, and just sort of like it sort of draws you into the castle so you can kind of explore and get lost for hours. That's kind of what I've done. I've kind of like when I needed inspiration for the interiors of these buildings, I was kind of just wandering around sort of just thinking. But this is like, yeah, this is a cool place to sort of just wander around to get inspiration, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, so I'm really happy with how these interiors turned out, and the roof of the Great Hall. I almost forgot that we did that. But yeah, the roof of the Great Hall, even though it has a big forehead, it's I think that's definitely something that we can solve with just like a window or again like a banner or something there. But there's definitely something that this castle is most certainly missing, and that is a name. Actually, the entire base is missing a name, but I think I want to name the town Westhold. I don't think we're gonna hold a vote for that. I think I just kind of want to name the town Westhold because it's sort of fitting. It's a very fitting name because hold as in like stronghold, because this castle is an insanely fortified stronghold. So hold kind of makes sense, and then West. I think West just kind of sounds cool, even though this town is actually east. I'm gonna sound very. I'm not going to sound... Yeah, it's east of Spawn, so it's not actually a western settlement. It just sounds cool to me. It just has sort of a ring to it. So I think the town is going to be named Westhold, the actual, like, village over here. But the castle... jury's out on what the castle could be named. The castle could be Castle Westhold, or really, you guys can send me any name suggestions. Put them in the comment section. Send them to me on Twitter, Instagram. Really, any method of sending me the castle names is perfectly fine. So if anyone's still watching this, and you have a name suggestion, just send it to me on Twitter. DM it to me on Twitter. Send it to me on Instagram. Put it in the comment section, whatever you prefer, really. And I'll probably put together a vote of my favorite names, and you guys can vote on the name of the castle. I think the town is pretty much set on Westhold, but the castle is completely up for debate. So if you want to send me your name suggestions, just again, Twitter, Instagram, comment section, anything you prefer, really. And yeah, I think that's pretty much where we're going to leave off today's episode. So my name, as always, has been VoidDoctor. I hope you guys enjoyed. I did this out of order. We're just gonna pretend I never completely messed up the intro, or the outro. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. My name, as always, has been VoidDoctor. Please like, subscribe, and share, and I'm out. Peace.